A new way to play my old Atari cartridges, or tapes as my parents used to call them, just arrived in my mailbox. Let's unbox and take a look, right after this pointless intro screen.
Did you play a game from Atari? Have you played Atari today?
You know, there was a time when Atari was very much a synonym for video games. Still, the Atari name will always hold high esteem in the retro market, and it would appear they're doing quite well embracing their legacy as of late. Not only did gamers get what could be considered one of the best retro collections ever put out on modern consoles, but Atari also finally realized that there are still plenty of us who enjoy playing the VCS the way we remember, by sticking a cartridge in the top and messing with switches. The Atari 2600 Plus was released on November 17, 2023. The design is based on the 1980 CX2600A 4-switch model, which retained the wood grain design of the original 70s 6-switch models, while relocating the 2 difficulty switches to the back of the console. Besides the console, I also picked up a pair of newly produced titles by Atari, an enhanced version of Berserk and Mr. Run and Jump. Here's the back of the box where the list of contents we'll be seeing shortly, and a screenshot of all 10 games on the cart. If that doesn't scare the kids away, I don't know what will. Also, you'll see they've readapted their old slogan, "Have you played Atari today?"
Have you played Atari today?
But overall, this is a perfectly adequate box, doing exactly what it is a box needs to do. Anyway, let me get this open with a quick slice of the sticker. The first thing that greets us is the unit itself, protected under a piece of molded plastic. You can see it's light and new toy shiny. On the back, you have your standard 9-pin joystick ports, difficulty switches, USB-C input for power, and a switch to change the aspect ratio for those that want to tease the devil by playing 4:3 games in 16:9.
Yeah!
And of course, your cartridge port and some switches which may need a little breaking in. I've never had a brand new VCS before, so I don't know how they're supposed to feel. But however accurate they are or aren't, they switch like switches are supposed to switch. All good. By the way, here's a Sunnyvale Heavy Sixter for size reference. Yes, it's dusty and dirty, but you would be too if you haven't bathed for over 45 years. And then here's a 1982 Darth Vader model, the first time Atari referred to this console as the 2600 incidentally, to differentiate it from the newly released 5200. These size comparisons are useless while the 2600 Plus remains in the box. That's probably the reason no one is watching this video. Except for you. Also in the box we have a quick start guide, which is the barest bones of documentation you could possibly get. Next up, there's this box within a box. In it we find a 10-game-in-1 pack-in cartridge. Sleeved, but no manual, which might frustrate a lot of VCS newbies. You choose the game by manipulating the dip switches, but I have to say the quality feels quite nice. Also in the box is a brand new CX40 Atari joystick, officially referred to as the CX40 Plus. It feels and functions very much like the OG stick, and putting them side by side, other than the filth and fade of the original, they appear indistinguishable. There's another box which contains the wires. You have the HDMI cord and a USB-C to A cord for power. No adapter to plug this into an outlet is included, but you probably have one lying around somewhere. Or start investing in power strips that have USB inputs built in. Finally, time to play some games. First off, with everything hooked up, let's see what happens when you turn on the console without a game cartridge in the system. Loading game failed. I'll try out this 10-in-1 game with the dip switches set to Real Sports Volleyball. Incidentally, these are not the easiest to maneuver with my fat fingers, but it's fine once you get the hang of it. Wait a minute. You might realize something terrible I just did. I popped the game in while the machine was turned on. While I don't recommend doing this, the game loaded without missing a beat. But I panicked and shut it off, hoping the machine and I could pretend like none of this ever happened. The game starts up and looks immediately ugly, but then I remembered the aspect ratio switch. All is right again. Real Sports Volleyball is a pretty fun game that's easy to pick up and play. I spent way longer with this than I had anticipated. Incidentally, I ran into some trouble picking a new game. I thought I had fried the cartridge by inserting it with the console turned on. Turns out I was just reading the dip switch diagrams upside down, managing to find the 6 combinations out of the 16 that are unassigned. Moving on, I opened up Mr. Run and Jump. I do find it kind of trippy seeing an ESRB rating on an Atari cartridge. Like the 10-in-1 cartridge, this comes in a cardboard sleeve. Again, no manual. But I need to get over that. And once again, this cartridge feels like an original from back in the day, glossy label and textured plastic shell. Oh no, Leap the dog has begun wandering towards the dark realm, and if he ventures too far, he'll never be able to find his way back. It's up to Mr. Run and Jump to race through 6 colorful worlds, bound over obstacles, dodge deadly enemies, and save his best friend before it's too late. And as the box indicates, this cartridge also works on the original 2600 and the 7800. The game definitely has a retro charm that I am digging. It gets a little tough fairly quickly, but you have unlimited lives, so just keep trying until you get it or you give up and play something else. Next we have Berserk, the Enhanced Edition. What are the enhancements? Well, robots now fire diagonally, there are new explosion animations, and a few bug fixes from the original. But the most obvious change, voice samples in between levels. That's actually quite impressive. Otherwise, it's mostly the same game. Next up, we're going to try Circus Convoy by David Crane and Gary Kitchen, two of Activision's original founders and game designers, released under Audacity Games. I've had this for a couple of years, but haven't opened it yet. And, unfortunately, as of software version 1.0, it will not load. Bummer. On the plus side, Kool-Aid Man works. For some reason, I had this notion that the Xanax double enders wouldn't work on this device. I don't know why, it booted up just fine. The color black and white switch even works the way you'd expect, letting you choose which character you want to be. One thing to keep in mind if you have a stack of old carts, you might need to give their contacts a quick cleaning. Some isopropyl alcohol and a cotton swab will usually do the trick. There is an official compatibility list uploaded, and I'll have links for everything I'm mentioning in the description. It will let you know if your game is supposed to work when it doesn't. Next up, we're trying out Star Raiders and its video touchpad. I have both the Atari and Sears version. The only reason I brought both out is to be a show-off. At any rate, the video touchpad does not work with the 2600 Plus, yet. By extension, this affects the keypad controllers as well as the kids controller, as they all are pretty much the same thing. Thankfully, the original paddle controllers work as expected, and despite being on an HDMI device with what I assume will be a modicum of input lag, I was able to rack up a respectable score in Kaboom without any issue. Unfortunately, the driving controller, similar to paddles but spinning 360 degrees, does not work. The button moves the car in Indy 500, but steering does nothing. Since the device plays 7800 carts as well, I decided to bust out its original controller. And thankfully it works just fine, with 2 independent action buttons. Their functions are backwards as of right now, but I'm hoping that will be worked out eventually. Every 7800 game I threw at it booted up just fine. And I would say that 95% of my 2600 collection worked as well. There are some notable titles that aren't compatible right now, such as Pitfall 2, Mountain King, and my aforementioned copy of Circus Convoy. But no worries. I am confident that the patches being rolled out for the 2600 Plus will address the issues and bring compatibility closer to 100%. It's been a few months since I started putting together this video. My procrastination has been a blessing in disguise, considering the honeymoon period of ownership is over, and I can offer more honest opinions about this device. First, the good news. I was able to grab the Paddles box set with the 4-1 cartridge. While I already own the games on this cart, it's nice to have a brand new pair of paddles. Like the joystick, these are functionally and cosmetically similar to the original CX30s. Secondly, Atari is set to release some new stuff for your Atari 2600 Plus, including reproductions of some fan-favorite 7800 games like Ninja Golf and Food Fight. And realizing that a one-button joystick will not be suitable for the 7800 games, they are also releasing a 2-button gamepad, the CX78, for an affordable price. But we need to talk about the patch. My optimism earlier in this video has slowly eroded. Yes, it's out there and you can get it right now. But as of this video's upload, it is not only still technically in beta, you have to head over to the Atari Age forums to get it. From there, it's a 3-step process requiring the download of 2 separate files. While it's not that difficult if you're fairly good at following step-by-step directions, I'm always viewing these processes through the eyes of the casual, less computer-savvy owners. Firmware updates seems to have been an afterthought by the developers. I did install the update. It fixes problems like the reversed difficulty switches, as well as several games, including Circus Convoy. Interesting game, by the way. However, there's still a lot not working as of version 1.1 revision 2. What's even more worrisome is that developments on this patch seems to have stalled as of this upload. Furthermore, it looks as if a completely different patch is being worked on, leading to further confusion over how to best improve the functionality of your device. While this would be forgivable for an emulator that was developed in the spare time of unpaid volunteers doing it as a passion project, this is a $130 investment we're talking about here. I don't think it's terribly unreasonable to expect some semi-regular updates that don't require creating a forum account to obtain. It's starting to worry me that these new wave of classic hardware recreations are pushed out and quickly forgotten by the companies involved. While I'm not expecting the same kind of attention a major console receives, it would be nice if they could at least fix the problems that should have been caught before it reached retail shelves. I sincerely wanted the Atari 2600 Plus to be a permanent replacement for my aging hardware, but as of April 2024, I still can't play several excellent games like Pitfall 2, TaxScan, or Star Raiders. Hi, I think it's important to break in again to clarify the exact problem with Sega's TaxScan. First of all, the game had always been listed as working on the compatibility list. While it does boot, it does not work as the game requires the paddles to be in the right port instead of the usual left. Pressing the fire button does not start the game like it should, leading me to believe their testing process was simply checking to see if a game loads without actually playing it. Secondly, the alternate firmware update recently posted on their forums does purport to fix it, with the caveat that it is experimental and might break other stuff that was originally working. Okay, let's wrap this up. Not saying it's completely worthless. After all, compatibility for the old games still hovers around 95 to 98%, and for many, it will be good enough. But I'm a little harder to please. It seems like all the attention to detail was poured into the hardware's authentic appearance, leaving the actual software under the hood somewhat neglected. Don't get me wrong, when it works well. But when it doesn't, it's a bummer. And it starts to make me wonder if I need to stop spending money on these modernized updates that get ignored way too quickly, and instead use that money to refurbish old hardware that continues to do everything better. This was Dave for TeeVee. See you next time.
Did you try to break out with an extra ball? Did your warlord win? Did you have a close call? Did you missile command? Did the aliens land?